Welcome to Josh Riley Watch. You know, the creation of this podcast has been a real struggle for me because I began this year really wanting to believe that Congressman Josh Riley would stand up for the people of New York's 19th Congressional District, stand up for the American people, stand against what Donald Trump and his supporters are doing to America. And he's taken some action to do that, but he has this pattern where he takes some symbolic actions against Donald Trump, and then he does some things to really help Donald Trump along. And this week I have to talk about some legislation in which it appears that Josh Riley is doing the second. He's helping Donald Trump to destroy America. And I hate to say that because I don't think that a Republican alternative in Congress would do any better, probably would do worse. But is that low standard the best that we can ask for here in New York's 19th Congressional District? I think we can aim higher than that. Let me explain this to you. You may remember back in March that Josh Riley voted in favor of H.J. Res. 25, which ended Biden administration regulations on cryptocurrency firms that required them to follow the same transparency rules as Wall Street investment firms. And why wouldn't you have those regulations there? I spoke in person to Josh Riley about that, and he assured me that, oh, don't worry, we're going to have some more legislation coming along later this year to fix that, to replace that. This week, the U.S. House of Representatives is voting on that legislation, and let me tell you, it does not look good. Does not look good at all. The signs grew darker concerning Josh Riley's relationship with cryptocurrency lobbyists when he decided to allow H.R. 1664, a bill that was written by cryptocurrency lobbyists under the title of the Deploying American Blockchains Act, to be approved in the U.S. House of Representatives on a voice vote without any member of the U.S. House having to go on the record as voting for or against it. It was just a voice vote. And Josh Riley could have stood up. He could have demanded a roll call vote, a tally. He could have demanded that. But it seems that nobody in Congress wanted to go on the record with that legislation. Josh Riley did not show up when Maxine Waters objected to efforts to rush through yet more legislation written to protect cryptocurrency scammers from serious regulation under the Securities and Exchange Commission. He just skipped that hearing, didn't take a stand. Well, there's been no avoiding this issue on Capitol Hill. A few days ago, law professor Richard Painter testified in a Senate Banking Committee hearing that passage of the slate of cryptocurrency bills that's being considered this week would put the United States in danger of a repeat of the Great Depression and the economic crisis of 2008 combined. Painter noted the striking parallels between cryptocurrency lobbies, push for deregulation, and the financial deregulations of the 1920s and the 1990s. And don't take my word for it. Here is the voice of Richard Painter giving that testimony himself.
We cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. 100 years ago, there were hearings in the House and Senate to regulate the banking industry. And Congressman Louis McFadden of Pennsylvania introduced a bill that eventually became the McFadden Act of 1927. They thought they had the perfect solution to bring banking into the modern age and have the United States be the premier center for banking in the world. The regulatory structure that was framed in 1927, the McFadden Act, was informed largely by lobbyists from the bank industry, and it lasted 3 years. The banks collapsed in 1930. Congress had not regulated the banking industry, even though it said it did. Fast forward to the 1990s, when I was writing in the field of securities regulation, and securities-based swaps and derivatives were coming on the scene. And the argument was made that a securities-based swap is not a security. A stock can be a security, but not a securities-based swap that is based on that stock. And it took years to figure out how to regulate securities-based swaps agreements. Under the Clinton administration, under the Bush administration, we had years of lax regulation, deregulation of the banking sector, laws passed by this Congress, and we saw what happened in 2008. We do not want to make that mistake again. I implore you to carefully look through this bill. Listen to the industry experts who are here today. Listen to Chairman Massad about his experience as a regulator. Consider carefully whether we should be drafting, passing through Congress, a very detailed bill that locks a lot of definitions in stone, or rather take up Chairman Massad's recommendation that we have the SEC and the CFTC, the regulators, work together to respond to evolving market conditions. Consider whether it would make sense to define a stock as a security, but not the tokenization of that stock. Think through these issues. Please do not make the same mistake that this Congress has made so many times before. And last, I want to emphasize how important it is that conflicts of interest of members of the Congress and the President of the United States not influence the regulation of cryptocurrency or any other industry. Under 18 United States Code 208, it is a criminal offense for a United States government official to participate in a government matter that affects their own financial interest. A Treasury Secretary who is regulating cryptocurrency or issuing meme coins and investing in a crypto business would commit a felony. But Congress has exempted itself from that statute. Congress exempted the President of the United States from that statute and the Vice President. That is wrong. We cannot have the people who are in charge of passing legislation and enforcing legislation, implementing legislation, have conflicts of interest with their official responsibilities. That includes every member of the House and Senate. You should be divesting from crypto if you're going to be regulating crypto.
That Senate hearing was about the Genius Act, which is cryptocurrency deregulation legislation that was crafted in the Senate. And that genius name is in tribute to Donald Trump and his declaration that he is a very stable genius, which tells you about what kind of credibility it really should have. Unfortunately, we have too many sycophants in the U.S. Congress who are willing to go along with the most absurd ideas from Donald Trump. And they're doing it not on principle, really. They're doing it because there's a lot of money to be made. There's a huge amount of money sloshing around in the bank accounts of cryptocurrency schemers. So, at just about the same time that Senate committee hearing was going on, the House Committee on Agriculture, of which Josh Riley is a member, held a hearing to amend another bill, H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, and to vote on whether to forward that bill to the floor of the full House of Representatives with a recommendation that it be passed. Josh Riley was present at this hearing, and as is his habit, he made some small gestures toward doing the right thing before taking a really big step, a consequential step, to do the wrong thing. Josh Riley voted for an amendment to the legislation that would have prohibited federal officials and their immediate family members from owning any stake in cryptocurrency businesses. Donald Trump has been using his ownership of World Liberty Financial and other cryptocurrency businesses owned by his adult children in name to accept hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes in exchange for government favors and direct access to the president. Josh Riley also voted in favor of an amendment that would have provided funds to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is at present drastically underfunded and is unable to accomplish much of the work that it has been mandated to do. That lack of funding is a big problem when it comes to H.R. 3633 because the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act blocks the relatively rigorous SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, from regulating cryptocurrency businesses, and instead it hands the responsibility of cryptocurrency regulation over to the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and pay attention to this, folks, it provides no funding for the CFTC to actually accomplish that new regulatory task. There's someone who is really conscientious about this on the House Agriculture Committee. That's U.S. Representative David Scott. And he's the one who offered these two amendments. And here's a little bit of David Scott explaining this issue, the issue of the CFTC not being funded to do any of the work to actually regulate cryptocurrency.
We are sitting here today marking up a bill that expands regulatory authority of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, an already overstretched agency with responsibilities for an entire new asset class without providing the financial resources necessary for them to do the job. Let us not forget that Congress has failed to formally reauthorize the CFTC since 2008. Yes, that's correct. 2 decades without a proper modern reauthorization for the CFTC. And now with this bill, we are piling onto that neglected framework a sprawling new mandate to regulate digital assets, which now is the most complex sector of our nation's economy. The funding provisions in this bill are vague, inadequate, and frankly, irresponsible. This bill essentially tells the CFT, do more with less. It hands over the responsibilities of the digital commodities that represent billions, if not trillions of dollars in value. Yet, it does not provide necessary funding to carry out these tasks.
Now, you're going to hear supporters of the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act pretend that the bill somehow improves regulation of cryptocurrencies. In fact, this legislation has been designed to prevent substantial regulation of cryptocurrency schemes from taking place. That's regulation that already could take place under the SEC, under current federal law. This bill actually takes that regulatory power away. A vote for H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, is a vote to allow cryptocurrency scammers to continue to defraud investors and corrupt the U.S. federal government without restraint. And do not take my word for it. Congressman Josh Riley has said the same thing himself. The Agriculture Committee report on the bill included a collective statement signed by Josh Riley and other committee Democrats, acknowledging that the legislation's few minor gestures toward regulation, quote, will accomplish nothing if agencies do not have the resources to implement it, both in terms of writing rules and regulations and engaging in continual monitoring and enforcement activities, unquote. That's a statement signed by Josh Riley. He knows what's going on. He knows that the CFTC is not going to be regulating cryptocurrencies. And here's David Scott talking about this very problem again.
The bill we are presented with today will not bring order to the crypto industry, but it will open loopholes for bad actors to exploit. The way it divides regulatory authority between the Commodities and Futures Trade Commission and the Securities Exchange Commission invites crypto firms to pick a favored regulator, as if they're buying the most lenient umpire in a baseball game. This is not theoretical. The SEC enforces strict disclosure, investor protection, and anti-fraud requirements, but the standards our public markets have upheld for years. And also the funding provisions in this bill are vague, inadequate, and quite frankly, irresponsible. The bill allows crypto firms to bypass proper oversight and ignore investor protections, as I have outlined on multiple occasions here and in the Finance Committee. The CFTC, though essential, is not designed to oversee retail-facing investment products. Under this bill, firms that should be held to the SEC level scrutiny can simply claim their tokens are digital commodities and then fall under the CFTC's lighter touch regime. And this is a gift to the worst actors in this industry. What message does this send to the American people and to responsible actors? It says this: if you play by the rules, you lose. If you lobby for a loophole, you win. It would seem that this bill, in fact, fails to include even the most basic concessions that have been raised by Democrats the last time it came before the committee.
Well, you may be asking yourself, what about those amendments that Josh Riley voted for to fix these problems? Well, the fact is both of those amendments were defeated, and Josh Riley knew darned well that they would be defeated when he voted for them. That's what you do on a congressional committee. You talk to other members, you see how they're going to vote, you see which way things are going, and you decide what kind of action you're going to take yourself based on what your colleagues are doing. Josh Riley's vote for those amendments was a fig leaf to create some cover for what he would do next. And what he would do next was this: knowing full well that the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act creates special exemptions from regulation for cryptocurrency schemes, Josh Riley voted with the Republicans on the House Agriculture Committee to approve the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act in committee, along with the recommendation that the legislation be passed by the full House of Representatives and be made law in the vote that's coming up this week, perhaps today. This week, the U.S. House of Representatives is scheduled to take that vote along with a vote on the Genius Act and another piece of legislation. All of these were really written by cryptocurrency lobbyists. And Josh Riley, with his committee vote, has clearly signaled that he intends to vote in favor of these bills, which defend the role of cryptocurrency in creating the most corrupt federal government in American history. This package of legislation will make the problems created by the Citizens United Supreme Court decision look tiny by comparison. Let's listen to U.S. Representative David Scott talk about that issue of corruption.
The bill before us does nothing to address President Trump's conflicts of interest and his personal involvement in the crypto industry. This ultimately leaves an open avenue for quid pro quo, for bribery, and for corruption. My amendment would prohibit President Trump from benefiting financially as a result of issuing, promoting, or trading cryptocurrency assets. And it would also require the president's family to place their digital assets in a blind trust. I share deep concern regarding President Trump's use of cryptocurrencies to enrich himself and his family while he's in office. For over 6 months, Democrats have been raising this issue, which my Republican friends refuse to address. And right before being sworn in as the most powerful person in the world, the president launched his own digital coin, followed by closely by other members of his own family. And within 3 days of release, President Trump's coin reached a value of $70 billion, making it the 15th largest coin in the world. Now, not only has the president profited directly off his official position, but some of the wealthiest crypto investors have been able to buy access to the president. Given the bill's exemption from registration with the SEC under Section 202, President Trump could not only peddle his meme coins and stable coins, but he could also solicit investments from Americans to line his own pockets.
I want you to remember the warning of law professor Richard Painter when he testified to the Senate Banking Committee. What's at stake here is a repeat of the Great Depression. With Donald Trump at the helm, do you think America could survive that kind of crisis?
The risk is that we repeat the experience of regulating the banks in the 1920s and the depression that followed, 10 years of depression. The risk is that we repeat what happened in 2008 when campaign contributions poured into Congress from the securities-based swap industry, elsewhere in the financial services industry, and we had decades of deregulation. The economy collapsed. Millions of American families losing their homes, people unemployed.
You know, Josh Riley keeps on giving us this excuse that he's not standing up against the fascism of Donald Trump. He's not speaking out against it very much. He's quite quiet about it most of the time, actually. And he says he's doing that because he wants to fight fascism by improving the middle-class economy. If we have the middle-class economy going through a cryptocurrency crisis, on top of the tariffs, on top of the impact of artificial intelligence, and the massive amounts of unemployment coming as a result of all of these government workers being laid off, do you think that his minor bills to weatherize housing and have a small federal government subsidy for that is really going to make up for that? Of course it's not. You can't say you're fighting fascism by making a stronger economy and then support legislation like this, which will rip the heart out of the American economy. Remember what law professor Richard Painter said. He's not just some podcaster like myself. He knows what he's talking about. It's not too late for Congressman Josh Riley to change his mind. It's not too late for Josh Riley to do the right thing and vote against political corruption through cryptocurrency schemes. We will be watching.